What's going on, guys? My name is Tommy. Welcome back to another episode of Min-Maxing for Fun and Profit. Today, Mr. AJ Parker would like us to break out the Alchemist with that wizard dedication. This one's for all you smarty brainy boys out there. Gonna take a little non-traditional look at how to optimize this build. A little less on the combat, a little more on the downtime, because the meta has changed for the Alchemist since this request so hard that we just have to talk about it. Anywho, if you guys are liking what you're seeing and you want more videos like this, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, throw your requests down in the comments section below. Today, this episode of Min-Maxing for Fun and Profit was brought to you in part by the man who's probably just as tired as I am. You might know him as Tomi Nagase. You might know him as Robin from House Divided or Doomsday Dawn. Speaking of Doomsday Dawn, I'm beginning my recording at 1:15 a.m. I'm exhausted, and we just got done with a long episode of Doomsday Dawn, which is going to go live before this. So we can get caught up on stuff. Robin in Germany is probably feeling about how I am. Regardless, brother, thank you for your help. Thanks for hanging out. Hope you enjoyed your character. Now, let's hit it. Alright, so since the playtest has first come out, as I'm sure a lot of us know, the Alchemist has changed a lot. Items with the infused trait don't cost resonance points to use, though, of course, with advanced alchemy, you still gotta burn your resonance to craft them, and that's the cornerstone of the build. Because, frankly, that has humongous effects on the meta. Both for us, the traditional punch-him-in-the-face party with the Alchemist passing out potions, and for the common man as well. Though I'm sure that every random NPC hanging out in random NPC town might not use the word resonance. They might understand that if a commoner who crafts potions, an apothecary or an herbalist or some noise like that, whips up a potion and gives it to him, there might be a chance it didn't work, especially if for some reason someone was especially sick and needed more than one potion in a day. For you, as long as they get it within 24 hours, the potion will work 100% of the time, and that's incredibly, amazingly, overwhelmingly powerful for a crafting character who wants to make a lot of money. So that's the focus here. Our Alchemist Wizard is going to be less about the combat and more about the downtime, more about making that money, more about selling that snake oil to all the commoners on Galarian. Now, this video does assume a couple of things. First off, this character is not going to be as effective, at least in the money-making department, unless your game has downtime that's spent in larger areas. Think a little more Rise of the Rune Lords, a little less Jade Regent when you're traveling over the Arctic, or like Strange Eons. You need time to stop and make things. You need to be able to talk to people. You need to be able to have a stand where you sell stuff. And the second point is this also assumes that there aren't any NPCs in the world, or at least their numbers are smaller, that are making alchemical stuff with the infused trait. This is really good in a world where, again, commoners took alchemical crafting. Less good, of course, when they're all alchemists and we're all peddling our goods at the same level. In that case, you certainly can still build and play this character and be successful. It's just going to be more about passing stuff out to the party. Now, down to the nitty-gritty. Believe it or not, for our race selection for this video, I can't believe I'm saying this, we're building a gnome. Yeah, there's a couple of reasons for this. First off, our primary stats that we require for this build are intelligence and charisma. There are no races that buff int and cha, except for, say, like a human. But having that extra buff at the cost of a minus to something doesn't hurt us as bad because we don't care about our strength. In combat, we have wizard levels. With enough downtime, we know all the spells, and we have cantrips and things that go boom in the night. I'm willing to bet we'll be just fine, starting with 8 strength. And of course, this is relevant now. Our gnome is playing with the Bleachling heritage. You've survived the bleaching. You're drained of color, but not dead horribly. We're choosing this heritage over the other ones, though I really wanted to pick Deep Gnome for Svirfneblin because they hold a place in my heart. because this gives you Animal Speaker for free, which is super powerful, as we've said a billion times over. Anywho, after all of our initial ability score buffs, we're looking at a strength of 8, a dexterity of 12, as well as a constitution of 12, an intelligence of 18, a wisdom of 12, and a charisma of 16. Now, normally I don't say this, but really this is all about our intelligence and our charisma, so we will be, as we advance, investing all the way into our intelligence. At the end of the day, after investing our charisma magic item, we're looking at a 22 in our intelligence and charisma, 18 dexterity, con, and wisdom, but 8 strength. And for our background, of all the things we could have picked today, I didn't think I'd be picking this one. We are in fact choosing a background that matters to us because our skill feats do matter. It's Gladiator. Fortunately enough, Gladiator does buff our Cha. I was afraid it might be strength or con or something, but it's the fascinating performance skill feat that we're here for, because it turns out fascinating a creature is really, really good for this build, because the fascinated condition puts a conditional penalty on perception and skill checks, which include now with perception our sense motive checks, because in fact the scenario exists, ladies and gentlemen, where this character may very well be of evil alignment, because again, if the common folk just know you have magic potions, for all they know, it worked fine. Well into the 48 to 72 to 3 month mark. But only if you paid an extra 150% for this kind of thing. That flavor is bad, but you get what I mean. You're assigning a -2, meaning, of course, the stuff you do, you'll pull off easier. Now, on that note, let's discuss skill feats, shall we? Because we're already there. We get alchemical crafting for free, grabbing us some formula, as well as fascinating performance right off the back from our background. But our skill feats this time are all about deception, all about diplomacy, all about making stuff. Because in fact, that's this character's role in the party. In combat, we can blow things up. In combat, we're passing out potions that people aren't paying resonance for. But out of combat is where we shine. Selling all this stuff to the masses for money to make sure our party is funded is very relevant at all times. Because these games do work off the gold, well, in the playtest silver standard. The more money you have, the easier a time you're going to have, the more stuff you'll have access to. It's just always relevant. Anywho, Charming Liar. When you get a crit success with the lie action, the target's attitude improves 1 step, as if you'd succeeded at diplomacy to make an impression. This works only once per conversation, and if you get a crit success against multiple targets using the same result, you choose which creature's attitude to improve. So if you can lie to more than one person at once, you must be lying in a way that appears to impart important information, or, selling the best potions ever. And these skill feats will continue to shine more and more as you level up. Because we're assuming most of the time we're dealing with the common man who's probably a very low level, so it's not hard to roll just way over his perception DC, especially fascinating them with a -2. Come one, come all, and failure saves, and now they like you better. Super good. Right on its heels at level 4, it's Group Impression, which says you can compare your diplomacy check whilst making an impression to the will DCs of 2 targets instead of 1. That increases to 4 at expert. We could be expert by now. 10 if you're a master, and 25 if you're legendary. You see where it goes. Get more people in the crowd to like you for longer. Not only will they be more willing to buy your stuff, but when people do pass the save and, oh, wait a minute, that guy's a liar, nobody's gonna believe him. Why? Because they love you. Anywho, level 6, it's Confabulator. This reduces a target's bonus from previous attempts to lie or create a diversion from +4 to +2. A master sees this bonus reduced to +1, and that is right around the corner for us if we level up a certain way. Legends in Deception remove the bonus entirely. It's worth noting that you don't necessarily have to play an evil character if you don't want to for this build, but the stats are certainly right there for it. We've got a decent charisma, we can be trained real good in deception, and if that makes us more money, so our party has more money, so we can kill the real evil things more, is that not just a good thing. No, I get lawful evil now. That makes sense. Cool. Anywho, level 8, it's Inventor. Inventor lets you spend downtime to invent a common formula that you don't know. Working like the craft skill, you spend a number of days in prep. Half the price of the formula up front, roll to check, and on a success, it's either finished by paying the other half or work for longer to decrease the price. This helps us get a hold of things that we might not know about, those weird, esoteric potions of even more powerful. And this is one of those feats that only gets better as time goes on, because as time goes on, the playtest is going to get more material, and some of it's going to be a little on the esoteric side. This is how we grab it. At level 10, we're grabbing Slippery Secrets. Spells that attempt to read your mind, detect whether you are lying, or reveal your alignment have to pass a spell roll against your deception DC, or they don't reveal a thing. Because, around level 10, it stands to reason the GM might be, especially if you're evil, throwing paladins and stuff at you. This helps us without necessarily burning spells. Feels weird to wait to level 12 to take this, given how useful it is for us, but Specialty Crafting at level 12 gives us a +2 circumstance bonus on crafting checks. Of course, we're choosing alchemical items because that's what we sell to folks. Whether that be in our downtime crafting or whether that's from infusing in batches, and whether maybe we confuse the two boxes and it's not our fault and we're sorry, but we can't offer refunds. I'm sorry little Timmy died of filth fever. We're real tore up about it. That's the idea. Bonuses to things get us closer to critical successes. Very important. Next up, it's Glad Hand. When you meet someone after taking Glad Hand, you can immediately throw the diplomacy check down to make an impression with a -5 penalty rather than having to talk for a minute first. On a success, you don't gain any further benefit, but if you fail or critically fail, you can engage in a minute of conversation, then attempt a new check at the end of that time rather than accepting failure. This functions only when you meet someone in a social situation, not when they want to kill you dead. But this is kind of hilarious in a setup where you might have a cart in the town square and you're hawking your wares and here come 25 dudes. You've just met them. You can immediately, this doesn't show any kind of reaction button or free action button or anything. You literally can't just throw the diplomacy check down. Yes, it has a -5, but again, we are trying to sell to the nobodies, especially if we're evil and they've got their last copper piece that they're using to try to get that filth fever off little Timmy. Man, we're horrible. Anyway, still good. At level 16, Impeccable Craft. When you succeed at a craft check to make an item of the type you chose with Specialty Crafting, you get a critical success. That much easier to get to the big benefit of making things. So, of course, we gotta have it again. I'm not quite sure how this one fits in, but it seems relevant to put our hands on Legendary Negotiator. At level 18, for 3 actions, make an impression, then immediately request your opponent cease their current activity and engage in negotiations. The GM sets the DC based on circumstances. Some creatures might just say no, and even those who agree might ultimately find your arguments lacking, but at higher level play, this is great for when somebody gets a little uppity, or maybe you're just rolling ones a lot and just, whoa, man, stop. Let's talk about this. Though, of course, this is made to stop combat. If it stops a combat from breaking out, so much the better. But if it doesn't, I think we can find a way somehow to get, with our massive intelligence, trained and intimidate as well. At level 20, why not? Scared to death. Oh, that guy had a heart attack. Better buy my potions, or you might also have a heart attack. Right? That's good logic. It works. And also on the battlefield, it's not the worst way in the world to kill things, especially after you've debuffed them with bombs and things. But mostly in combat, we are all about making elixirs, antitoxins, anti-plagues, passing those out to our friends, keeping our friends around, and then it's our casting, our wizard powers that keep us relevant, especially cantrips. They'll heighten to half your level, and we've got a pretty good intelligence, us being alchemists. So most of the time we might just be spamming Ray of Frost, but it's still not bad to do so. And with how easy it is as a wizard to add spells to your spellbook, whether learning an arcane spell in downtime stuff or buying scrolls and copying it, the less spells we know doesn't hurt us as bad as it could. On that note, let's talk about our class feats. Out the gate at level 1, Alchemical Familiar was tempting, but we're a gnome and don't need it. So instead, we're grabbing Smoke Bomb. When you craft an alchemical bomb using the quick alchemy action, you can cause the bomb to create a cloud of thick smoke in addition to its normal effects. When thrown, it does a cloud of smoke in a 10-foot radius burst. You choose what corner it's centered on, things like that. All creatures are concealed. It's not a bad emergency panic button when you need to run away. But even if it's not, we can use this as a part of our performance. Though we didn't really take a whole lot of performance stuff. No class feats or anything here. We're not a bard. But explosions draw a crowd. That cloud of smoke could definitely be like bright violet purple. And I don't think anybody is going to bat an eye at you for making that flavor choice, especially because it's good. And also, if you need to run, it's there. Anywho, level 2, we're grabbing the wizard dedication. We're getting trained in Arcana. We're getting those cantrips. And we're really not going to talk a whole lot about them. Just Ray of Frost, Electric Jolt, Acid Splash, etc. This is your combat bread and butter, for the most part. This build, again, isn't going to shine on the battlefield quite like a traditional spellcaster or a bomber alchemist or Grognar the Barbarian with his dual-wielded great axes cleaving through folks. But again, if we're funding the war effort, we're doing just as well. You guys remember that old Treant Monk guide for wizards? That is basically the treatise on why haste is a good spell, because we gave them the extra action. They killed them because of us. We are God. Same idea, but with money. Anywho, level 4, it's efficient alchemy. Because of the great amount of time you spent studying and experimenting, you know how to scale up your formula to larger batches without giving them any additional attention. When you spend downtime to craft alchemical items, you can spit out twice the number of alchemical items in a single batch, which is normally 4 instead of 2. So, for instance, if you're making 2 elixirs of life, instead it makes 4. This doesn't reduce the amount of required reagents and ingredients and stuff, nor does it increase your rate of progress. Also, it doesn't change the number of items you're creating with advanced alchemy, which is, again, our bread and butter. But if we have the downtime and we can make more, why not? These are the reduced priced ones, the ones that may fail if you're a good character, if you're an evil character. Again, well, I'm sorry it went bad, no refunds. Maybe say it nicer than that. You get the idea. At level 6, we'll grab basic wizard spellcasting. More on our spell choices in a minute. Again, as a wizard, we can pretty much grab all of them, jam them in our spell book, which also helps us have a little bit more pivotability, especially as the game goes on. We just got done with a fair at Somberfell Hall, and I can report now, Fireball's a really powerful spell. It does things that make your GM get confused in what is happening, and your Alchemist Wizard can have that prepped if they need to, though most of the time we're looking at different spells. Anywho, level 8, it's Combine Elixirs. When you craft an alchemical item that has the elixir trait using the quick alchemy, so at your stand at request, spending 3 resonance points instead of 1 adds a second elixir to the one you're crafting. When this elixir is consumed, both take effect. So that's a double elixir of life that heals double. That's an antitoxin anti-plague. That's an anti-plague elixir of life. It goes on and on. And these have the infused trait as well. Oh man, those have the infused trait as well. That means that we're not spending any resonance on those. They just happen. That's even more powerful now. I love it. That's so good. I want to play this at some point. Can I be a support alchemist and make money, but mostly just help people to feel better? Anyway, whoa, strong medicine, level 10, though actually was feat level 8. When your quick alchemy creates any type of elixir of life, the creature gets both the healing effect and the effect against toxins that you would get from drinking one of these things at full hit points. 2 for 1, super good. That gets better even here in a second. But at level 14, we do grab our last wizard class feat, expert wizard spellcasting. So that means at the end of the day, 16th level, 2 levels from now, we'll have 2 level 6 arcane spells in our spell book with 1 spell slot, 2 level 5 arcane spells, which we gain immediately when we grab this with 1 spell slot, and it's 2 level 4 to 1 spells in our book with 2 spell slots. Again, of course, learning arcane spells, jamming things in spell books, always good, never bad. You know what also isn't bad? Perfect medicine. When your quick alchemy creates any type of elixir of life, the creature gets max hit points. Oh, also, and they're topped off, buffed against toxins and stuff. Though this build is making its bread and butter for 100% sure, not gonna lie to anybody. In theory, at least in my head, using deception to make it out that our potions are better. It's also backed up with facts. Perfect medicine is one of them. This is max hit points. No need to mess around. It's also really good for the party because, max hit points in combat, who doesn't love it? Anywho, level 18, Miracle Worker. Lets you work miracles. But also, it lets you bring people back to life as long as they've been dead for 10 rounds or less. They're immediately returned to life with 1 hit point and no resonance points. Also, you've brought back the dead. That can only be good for business, / it can only be good for the monsters not attacking you at 20th level, of course. We're whipping up the Philosopher's Stone. Now, ancestry feats. Since we're a bleachling, we've got Animal Speaker for free, of course. That means we have to grab Animal Accomplice. And this time we are, in fact, going to grab ourselves some kind of something or other with a burrow speed so we can talk to it. Because again, the utility of a familiar can never, ever, ever, ever be overstated, especially in a game like this. But that helps sell the magic, sell the illusion. Man, you're probably outperforming the bard, or at least giving him a run for his money a lot of the time. And if the party builds around this, builds you a bard or 2 to work with, that's even better. You have this little dude that you can talk to, this little dude who can go drag potions to people. And again, dare I say it, if this alchemist happens to exist in a lower-ish, not low, but lower-ish magic setting, people are going to lose their minds for it. If the GM doesn't buff your checks because you're just amazing, well, boo on that, I say. Yeah, anywho, it's Lucky Halfling at 5th because, of course, we're adopted, in fact, by Halflings for a lot of reasons other than this one now. But at 9th, it's First World Magic because we need 1 more cantrip. We need 1 primal cantrip. We need guidance. This is all about rolling diplomacy checks, deception checks, craft checks. There's a +1. Super good. From the 1.4 update, Guiding Luck lets us reroll that attack roll that might have missed, lets us reroll check that might have not gone so well. Once a day, our lab doesn't blow up in our faces. Seems great to me. And at the end of the day, though this one's a bit of a stretch, it worked in 1st edition, so I gotta bring it in here because it's great. Weapon familiarity for the halfling, so you can use, after grabbing martial weapon proficiency, the halfling sling staff. Now, of course, the feat name itself wasn't the most relevant in the whole world, but in 1st edition, there was an alchemist discovery that lets you put your bombs on ranged attacks. Therefore, it's certainly worth mentioning, though, of course, a GM might say no, and they're within their rights to do so. This is rye over raw. But that sling staff has a range of 80 feet. I don't see any reason why we can't put an elixir in that and shoot it at someone, and then the liquid hits them, and then they get healed. Or if that doesn't work, and then you say, hey, catch, shoot something at them from 80 feet away, they grab it and have a potion, to say nothing of when we're making alchemist fires and firing them at the bad dudes. For our general feats, of course, we've got to be adopted by halflings pretty much right out the gate, like all the characters seem to be. Then it's Iron Will for better will save. Then it's Alertness for better perception. Then it's Incredible Initiative in case combat breaks out and we gotta go fast. Everyone likes it. Not necessarily combat, but you understand what I mean. And finally, Weapon Proficiency at the very end to buff up to martial weapons just in time to do some halfling sling staff shenanigans. Now, again, we're not going to go over every single solitary wizard spell we can get our hands on because really, if we have enough downtime to do what this character wants to do, probably either by trading potions for scrolls or by just spending the time ourselves, we can have whatever we need, which of course is scary powerful. So we're just going to tag the spells that are interesting and useful for this build, one for each level. Again, when you're going into combat, you certainly could turn these into lightning bolts and cone of colds and fireballs, oh my. For now though, at level 1, Unseen Servant can allow you to ooh and ah the common man, fetching objects, opening doors, picking up your familiar and making it look like it flies around with its stealth score that might, maybe, cause it to not be there, at least in the eyes of the common man. In the dungeon, why not have this thing open the door instead of you? At level 2, for 2 actions, Illusory Creature creates an illusory image of a huge or smaller creature, which makes appropriate sounds, generates normal smells, and feels right to the touch. It can only ever be 500 feet away from you, but that's fine. The image can't speak, but you can use your actions to speak through it with the spell disguising your voice as appropriate. You might need to make a deception or performance check. We've got that on lock. Out of combat, this makes a really good come one, come all, as suddenly there's a 20-foot gnome in the village. Also good for scaring off bandits. It's a win-win. At level 3 for 2 actions, Thrall. Though, will saves might be thrown out if a target is of a different religion, ancestry, or political leaning, or might not agree with what you're saying, so just phrase your stuff right. Can fascinate people, again, a -2 to perception, super good when you're decepting. But if they crit fail, the target can't attempt to save to end the fascination if it disagrees with you. So then you could just say the most crazy thing in the world and everyone will still smile and nod and take a penalty. For 10 minutes, at level 4, Private Sanctum makes a sanctum that's private for the alchemist on the go who needs a place to craft that won't be disturbed by wolves and things, because sounds and smells and light don't pass from the inside to the outside. And a bank of impenetrable black fog kind of looks like the inside of a building when the lights are off, for when people might come a knocking at your shop. Again, it's a win-win for us. Rolling out another 10-minute spell out to 500 feet that lasts for an hour. At level 5, it's Illusory Scene. You form an imaginary scene that includes up to 10 discrete creatures or objects of various sizes, all of which have to be within the area. And these elements all generate appropriate sounds and smells. They feel right to the touch. Elements of the scene are incapable of speech, but unlike the Illusory Creature spell, creatures in your scene lack combat abilities and stats. Your scene doesn't include changes to the environment around it, though you can put it within an illusory environment of like hallucinatory terrain, but whatever. When you make the scene, it's either static or it follows a program. Though a static scene is stationary, it includes basic natural movement like wind blowing on paper. The program can be up to a minute long, and it repeats when finished, so you could make a program scene of 2 orcs fighting each other. The fight would go the same way for each loop. But of course, you can smooth out the program, so it's hard to tell when the loop begins or ends. But anyone watching long term will almost always realize that it's looping. You can't alter this after you've cast it. Anybody who touches it or seeks at it can try to disbelieve it. And if they're only interacting with a portion of it, they only disbelieve that portion, but a crit success lets them disbelieve the whole thing. Heighten this bad boy up to 6, though. Creatures or objects in that scene can speak. You must speak the specific lines for each actor when creating it. The spell disguises your voice. Again, all of these illusory spells, of course, have their own combat utility, but it also makes your stuff look super cool to the common man when you're trying to sell him potions that are definitely way better for him than what a non-alchemist crafter can spit out. Again, it's more than reasonable to think that a bonus to your deception checks and your diplomacy checks would be here, and you can probably ask for a lot more in terms of cash with this much pizzazz. But if it goes bad. At level 6, the highlighted spell for this build is Teleport. Teleport now takes 10 minutes to cast, but can shoot you out to 100 miles. You and up to 4 willing creatures are out. As long as you can identify that location precisely, incorrect knowledge will usually cause this to fail, but could lead to going somewhere horrible. Teleportation isn't precise over great distances. The targets appear at a distance equal to roughly 1% of the distance traveled, irrelevant for short journeys, but if you're shooting yourself 100 miles away, you end up a mile off target. We can never heighten this too high. But again, if we're a terrible character and we need to get out real fast and take our friends, this will do it. Poof, we are gone 10 minutes later, of course. So need a distraction, need to lock a door, private sanctum. The utility of being able to shoot yourself across the map cannot be overstated. A couple of items we're going to highlight before we round this bad boy out. First up, at item level 7+, the Alchemist goggles give us a +2 or +4 item bonus to crafting checks, and sometimes a +2 item bonus to attack rolls with bombs, ignoring penalties for screening, but that's not really our jam. Really, this is just another way to buff our ability to make stuff faster, make it better, get it to crit success, have more, have the best, make money, get that fighter, the magic sword he's been ogling for days. The inexplicable apparatus at item level 19 turns you into Doc Ock, and it also gets you the highest, a +5 item bonus to crafting checks, and you reduce the minimum number of days to craft by 1 day, with a minimum still of 1 day. If you spend more downtime to keep working on an item after the minimum, on a success, each day you spend reduces the cost as though your level were higher. Crit succeed, and it's as if you were 2 higher. If you're 20th level on a crit success, your progress is 500 silver, 1,000 silver, 2,000 silver, or 3,000 silver for your rank. So legendary, you progress 3,000 silver up. Now, what exactly that means will be another video. Crafting is a whole new animal. Eventually, we will get to that. But again, the idea here is we're making elixirs of life. We're selling them to the people who need them. Anti-plagues and anti-venoms to people who are sick and desperate and in need of us. And because the infused trait helps us do this a little better, because they're not rolling their own flat checks, it's just 100% successful for us all the time. Our potions are all the stronger. It makes us all the more money to buy all the more scrolls, to be a better wizard, to gear the party out. You see where I'm going with this? Though we aren't the mad bomber, necessarily, though we aren't the most combat-y of combat-y, this is min-maxing in an entirely different alley. I love that alchemy has been made a staple part of this game, and the fact that it doesn't cost anyone resonance anymore, at least at this point in the playtest, is amazing. And it does bring us profit, which does bring us fun, and now we've come around full circle. What do you guys think about this build? Did I miss anything? Can we do it better? How do we feel about the infused trait making our potions go for free now? Super powerful, right? I'm loving it. But that's all we have for today. Thank you guys so much for watching, and again, if you're loving these, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. The next episode of Min-Maxing for Fun and Profit, where we're going to talk about optimizing not us, but our pets. Specifically, the animal companion drops next Saturday.